If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com. Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Happy Friday. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, and you know what that means. This is another episode of Friday Friends brought to you by RI Elder Info. I am Deb Burton, the Executive Director, and your host every Friday, where I speak with guests who are talking about things that you or someone you know really needs to know about. So make sure you hit the like button, the share button. The things we're talking about today are things that are best prepared ahead of time and are most frequently not something that can be changed once decided upon, or definitely not changed easily. So make sure you hit the like and the share button because it's a hot topic. And I want as many people as possible to hear this information because it really is critical. Now, as you all know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we would not be able to bring you Friday Friends every week without the support of our sponsors. So big thank you to Point 32 Health Foundation and to United Healthcare, Oak Street Health, as well as McCarthy Law, Washington Trust, 321 Media, as well as England Studio. We could not do what we do without all of their support as a nonprofit, as well as individuals like yourself. So thank you all for helping us get the word out. Today, my guest is the president of Winfield & Sons Funeral Home and Crematory, Mr. John Winfield. Welcome, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Great. You know, I spoke with you a little bit ago about different pre-planning of funerals and cemetery preparations on all of those things. And wow, there was so much that even myself working in this industry was not aware of. And so I'm incredibly grateful that you're coming on Friday Friends.
Thank you.
To share, like, what steps should people take and when in preparing for the end?
Well, it's something everybody has to think about. And unfortunately, when you don't make decisions for yourself and get them properly documented ahead of time, it can cause enormous problems for the people that you leave behind. One of the bigger problems we have in Rhode Island is most people aren't aware that you may require 3 or 4 signatures in order for you to be cremated if it's not properly documented ahead of time.
Why would that be? Who would need to sign off in order to have that happen?
Right. Well, every state has specific laws, but in Rhode Island, they're pretty rigid. For example, if you're married, it's always your spouse that signs. If you don't have a spouse, it's all your adult children. If you don't have any adult children, it goes to your parents, then to your brothers and sisters, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and so on. And it can get huge pretty fast. We had a family a couple weeks ago. It had 8 kids scattered across the country. Now, if one of those kids said, "Hey, we don't want to cremate him," then we can't do it because we need all 8 signatures. So Rhode Island's put aside a few things that can be done in advance to eliminate those difficulties. First one is you can make your funeral arrangements in advance, pay for them, have the documents signed at the funeral home, and you're all set when that time comes.
So I have a question about that. if somebody does pre-plan their funeral, say I pre-planned today in 2024, but I don't pass and say, God willing, 2054.
Okay.
Give myself like another 20 or 30 years.
Yes.
How does that work? Is the contract still honored, even though I'm assuming between 2024 and 2054, the cost would go up? Is that still honored?
Yes, for the most part. Usually funeral homes give what's called a guaranteed arrangement, where they guarantee their portion of the contract will be fulfilled by the funeral home in the future. The only control we don't have are those expenses outside, like the cemetery, church, and newspaper. So it's a good idea if you do pre-plan to take care of that, and then consult with the funeral home periodically and say, hey, is there enough money to take care of what's referred to as cash advances, the outside charges? And most of the time it's very close. Sometimes it's dramatic, but it gives you the opportunity to put a little bit more aside to take care of those on it.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know that, you can pre-plan and rest peacefully.
Yes.
That you can rest peacefully when the time comes.
Right. Yes.
What are some additional steps that folks should take?
Well, we always recommend pre-planning and prepaying. That guarantees in the state of Rhode Island that we're obligated to follow your instructions. So if you have a cousin or a nephew that comes in at the last minute and says, hey, I want to do this with Auntie, we don't have to worry about it. We just show the contract and we proceed according to the individual's wishes. So that's the best way. The second way is the state of Rhode Island has a great form. It's called a funeral planning agent form. That's where you fill it out, the person that's making the plans, the person that you want to be in charge of things afterwards, a witness and a notary. So when that time does come, the people that you appoint to handle the arrangements have full authority to take care of them without any interference from anybody else in the family.
Now, if that person is designated, does that avoid all the sign-offs by all the family members if I wanted
Yes,
to be cremated?
Yes, it eliminates anybody else getting involved. So if you have that child that no longer participates in the family, then you don't have to worry about him or her. Your wishes are respected.
Okay. Okay. And does that person, so that document goes into effect after I pass away? Then
Well,
the person I designate
right.
can bring that to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a great idea, though, if you do execute one of these documents, that you run it by your lawyer or the funeral home just to make sure all the blanks are filled in. So it's valid.
You've got to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because it's not really a kind of thing that you get a second shot at if it's after the fact.
Correct. Yes.
So when that person is named as my designee, does that mean that they have to be the one to pay for the funeral? Does that mean they're like the person in the will or a beneficiary? Does it have any impact on those things?
Well, part of the funeral planning agent form states that they're personally responsible for the charges for the funeral or cremation. So that's why we recommend, if at all possible, you do the pre-planning with the funeral home and the prepayment. And then you just designate in that form that so-and-so will be calling the day-to-day shots. What day are we having the funeral? What church are we using? So that protects them against the financial risk. But if the person's not able to do it, the next best thing is that funeral planning agent form.
Okay. Okay. Because I think sometimes maybe there may be some physical limitations in being able to go to the funeral home to make your last choices known ahead of time. And people have mobility impairments, transportation challenges. So having that in place is really helpful. Now, if along the line, say I nominate my daughter today to be the one who has the authority to do that, and I don't know, maybe in a couple of years something happens and she doesn't want to be it.
Oh,
Do I
sure.
have the ability to change it?
Oh, yes, you can always change this form after the fact. There's room for two agents. It
Okay.
says the primary agent, and the wording is if the primary agent is unable or unwilling to, then the secondary agent takes over. And then if that doesn't, if things change in your life where you don't have the first and second person, you can rip that form up, get a new one, and start over.
That's good because I think it. Would you say a lot of times couples name the other as the person?
Well, yes, a lot of couples do that, and it's certainly appropriate. But when we do any paperwork, we usually stress that it should be your spouse, and there should be somebody else on in case the death were to happen jointly,
Mhm.
or for medical reasons the other person wasn't able to act. So we always like that backup. It makes it easier for us, and certainly takes care of the family and the individual that has died.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like these days many folks are aging with blended families.
Yes.
And so, we have my mom's husband, my dad's wife, um, my mom's wife, my dad's husband, those kinds of situations where, families look different and who's responsible for what when somebody passes, that can get a little stressful.
It can get stressful on families, and we go through that constantly with different families, and we find that the individual that pre-plans their funeral, makes sure it's taken care of or somebody's in charge. Um, when other members of the family try to add some input, we simply say, well, Mr. Smith said it was Jane that was making the decisions, and it usually works out well for everybody because you have a piece of paper that says this is the way it is. And very seldom have problems with that.
What a great way to ensure that my personal decisions or someone else's personal decisions are really respected in this way. What are some other steps that people should take ahead of time?
Okay, well, you have to decide what type of service that you're having and whether you're being buried or cremated. And what happens with a lot of people that choose cremation is they don't go to the next step, which is what happens to my cremated remains afterwards.
Ooh, good
Right.
point. Yes.
Right.
What then?
Right. So there's several things
Mm.
you can do. You can certainly retain them at home, but what happens with the person that has the cremated remains when they're no longer with us? So you have to have an end plan. So you can certainly bury cremated remains in a cemetery.
Oh, okay.
You can scatter them on property that you have ownership or permission from the owner to scatter the cremated remains. You can scatter them at sea after you do the proper paperwork. Um,
Hmm.
so there's endless possibilities, but what the real important thing is that you don't just die and leave somebody your cremated remains and say to them, it's your problem now, which
Right.
can become a problem because you have that emotional connection. And if it were your mom, well, what did mom want done? And it causes grief for you if you don't have a plan. And it's important you do.
Yeah. So it doing these pre-planning work it really sounds like it's a gift that you can give to your family and friends when you go, that you've taken care of that, so that the I don't know if it's the right word, but the work of grieving,
Yes.
of making, all the other things when someone passes that have to be taken care of. This is one thing that you as the person, as all of us, have the ability to control and make easier for our loved ones.
Yeah. It's a gift of love. You make your plans today. It doesn't mean that something's going to happen to you tomorrow, but you can go on with your life and say that I didn't, make it difficult for my children, my brother, my grandchildren. And the children appreciate that because they know just what mom and dad wanted. So there's no second guessing. Did I do what mom wanted? Well, maybe I should have did this. Mom said what she wanted. She gave you that gift.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know I promised it would only be a few minutes, but I want to ask, if you have time, if somebody is hesitant to have the conversation, because I'm sure when people started watching this video that there are folks like, I can't talk about this. Like, how can families start this conversation with their loved ones to get it going, to get it out in the open?
Well, for some families, it's very difficult. But what I usually recommend is I don't say, call me up, come in, and we sit down. We usually start with a conversation on the phone, and we get a general idea on what you want. And then we have some homework assignments for you. You have to talk to your husband or you have to talk to your daughter, and we build a plan. And it might take 3, 4, 5 conversations till you actually meet with me. And we have everything outlined. So when you come in, it's just a matter of, a few particulars in it. We get it all documented, we get it packaged, and then we recommend that you give copies of this to whatever family members that should, so you don't have a problem when the time comes.
Exactly. Don't put it in the safe or the safety deposit box that will take a while to get access to.
Yes, we always have the original, so it's not a big problem for us. But we stress, give a copy to anybody. It's, photocopies are inexpensive now, and pass it out. And then it gives the family members the opportunity to look at it. So if there was something that mom or dad did that they really didn't feel comfortable with, you can make changes to it. But afterwards, it's a set plan.
This just sounds like a real gift to be able to give to families, to plan what you want and how you want it ahead of time, because none of us are going to live forever. So this is something that we have to talk about at some point in time.
Yes, it has to be talked about. And the whole reason why you do this is for the people that you leave behind. And you loved your children. Why do you want to put them in a position where they have to make a decision within a couple hours, which could be financially devastating to them?
Yeah.
This way you talk about it, you get it documented, maybe you pay for it, maybe you do the funeral planning agent form. Everybody's on the same boat, so they know what happens. And you have enough to deal with when somebody dies, the grief. Why deal with the minutia?
Exactly. It's all of those additional challenges, and your loved ones can still, bring photos for memory walls and things like that.
Yes.
And all those other things. The family, unless you've, maybe designated ahead of time, the family can still choose the clothing and those kinds of things.
Right. There's still plenty for them to do. They're still participating, but we have the foundation built, and they're just helping, finish off the rooms, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you were able to come on. I feel like this is part of a bigger conversation. So I would love to have you come back. But in the meantime, if people have questions and they wanted to talk to you, what is the best phone number or best way for them to reach you?
Okay. Well, certainly we're available weekdays between 9 and 4 at 401-647-5421. Of course, if there's an emergency, we can be contacted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the same phone number. But, when you talk to us, there's no obligation. We just try to have a nice conversation. We have some people that call us 2 or 3 years before they actually make a decision. You get to know them, so you know what they're like. And I always used to say, when I meet with people, and I do a lot of appointments at person's home, is I'll write a piece of paper and I'll turn it upside down. And then at the conclusion of the conversation, after they've made plans, I'll say to them, "You feel better?" And they say, "Yes, I do." I turn the paper over, and everybody says that because it's taken care of.
Good. See, I think that's a a beautiful gift to be able to share with folks.
Yes.
And so that number again was 401-647-5421, and you can have that conversation with folks.
Yes.
And get this process going.
Yes.
But would you be willing to come back and do another episode a little further out and talk about more areas around this? Because I feel like there's so many things that we just didn't get a chance to talk about, like I paid for the funeral, I must be the beneficiary, or the will says this, or there is no will, or there is no family, or, oh my gosh, like I'm the landlord and there are an urn in the house, and all of those things that just come up in real life. Would you come back?
Sure. I've enjoyed my time with you today, and I certainly be willing and able to come back and talk about things. I have some funny stories. I have some sad stories, so certainly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. I do appreciate it, and I will have you back.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Everybody, this is one of those conversations that I know when I first started talking about it, you're kind of like, but I hope this is helping to kind of peel back the layers and maybe starting conversations with yourself and your family and your friends, because none of us are getting out alive. And if we can take the steps to make the plans for what we want, it's a wonderful gift for our family. So I look forward to seeing you all again next week. In the meantime, be well and be kind.
If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.